right? You know that I'm high on Houston, but I think West Virginia could go 9-3 in 2025. I'll tell you why. In a Locked On Big 12, Locked On West Virginia crossover.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh, happy football season, everybody. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. And that's Mountaineer Paul of Locked On West Virginia. Thanks for making our shows your first listens every single day. Paul, I've had a lot of people in the comment section, and they have wondered, when will we get the greatest crossover in Locked On sports history? And I believe today is that day. As we talk West Virginia, shocking. Yes?
Yeah, you think it's that day?
Today's that day. Today's that day.
West Virginia is that kind of place, man. Look, I'm wearing a sweater in the summertime. West Virginia is such a cool place to live, right? That's how awesome it is to be here. Glad to be on Locked On Big 12 crossover for sure. I
envy the sweatshirt. It is 90 million degrees in Savannah, Georgia, with 100% humidity.
Obviously, it's my Mountain Dew shirt, you know. So. And
I can only hope you have a Dew to crack in segment 2 today.
I do, yeah. Perfect. It's actually it's a code red, actually.
Little code red action. We are going to start. West Virginia can shock the Big 12. At least that's what I think. And 9-3 is not that far out of the realm of possibility. Then, who are the real contenders in the Big 12? Let's get Paul's thoughts on who might just win this league, if not those Nears, and we'll end it with, would West Virginia ever actually explore leaving the Big 12? There are all those weird rumors about the SEC or, could they go to the ACC? I don't think so. We'll see Paul's take as well. But let's start it there. 9-3. I think Houston and West Virginia are my two dark horses that will do really well in the Big 12 this season. Part of why I believe that, Robert Morris, Ohio, even Pitt and Kansas. I think West Virginia can have a very hot start to this season, and that home game against Utah could also be a win. Is 9-3 that crazy? Am I insane?
Nah, not insane at all, man. Rich Rodriguez just won the league with Jack State last year, 2 years after an FCS upheaval, right? So it's one of those things where when you look at Rich Rodriguez, he's had some slow starts in his career. He's had some hot starts in his career, but he's never had these resources. And this year he had the resources. He's got the coaching staff to let him spend $2 million. And what I believe is the brightest young defensive mind in all of college football in Zac Alley. Oklahoma did everything they could to keep that kid. They went up 30 spots in every defensive ranking you can look at or measure at Oklahoma last year, even though they were 6-7. If you look at it, they went up 20 or 30 spots from a Venables coach defense to an Alley coach defense, and he was elite. He's been top 10 at Jack State when they were there. So I think he's going to be a huge, huge part of this. I do believe the West Virginia defense is going to be, if we're 9-3, that's the reason this year, in my opinion. The offense will do its thing. It's not going to be the 07 team elite where you're 38, 40 points a game, but I do think the defense can be very respectable, if not really good. And I've got a lot of reasons why I can say that.
Okay, let's do it. West Virginia, first 3 games of the season are a win for me. At Kansas, that is a win in my book. I think West Virginia starts 4-0. I think Kansas will still be in that 7-5 range, maybe 8-4. They can pull that off despite the loss. Utah game, I'm going to go loss here. Paul, I think Utah is going to be good this year. I also have them in that 8-4, 9-3 range. At BYU, I've got a loss there. So I know what you're thinking. How do we get to 9-3? That's where everything clicks after the bye week. I'm going a win the following week at UCF. No one's shocked by that, right? TCU comes to Morgantown. That's a win. At Houston, that's a win. Colorado, win. Loss at Arizona State. No one berate me for that. And then a loss to Texas Tech, or a win in one of those two. I think they split one of those two due to the momentum. With that, that's where I find 9-3. Am I crazy for that?
No, I don't think so, man. Like the only games on this schedule that I look at and I'm scared of is probably Arizona State, BYU. I'm not even that scared of Utah. I think Kansas on the road can be a little bit of a weird game. It's not like, you're not looking at Kansas State on the schedule. You're not looking at Iowa State on the schedule. You get lucky. You miss some teams that would normally be a tough out in your first year for sure. Utah has yet to do it, right? And obviously their fans don't want to be here. So I think you look at Utah, and I'm not even sure what to expect from them. Obviously, Whittingham is the winningest coach in the conference with Rich Rod, right? Those are the two winningest coaches in the conference. So Whittingham's been in it forever there at Utah. But, I mean, if you're looking at the rest of the schedule, I think they're mostly coin flip, if not winnable games, and especially that stretch after BYU, UCF, TCU, Houston, Colorado is where I think West Virginia makes a lot of hay.
The idea that year number one at a Rich Rod could go that well, I think, is foreign to the rest of the conference. Many people have West Virginia at 15 or 16 in their Big 12 preseason rankings. Why do you think people don't trust either Rich Rod or the Mountaineers in year one?
Neil Brown. It's absolutely Neil Brown. Neil Brown ruined our reputation. We haven't been in a poll since 2019 that came out today. In the history, if you look at Rich's histories in the conference, BYU's got a national championship, but outside of that, you would probably say West Virginia has the richest overall history in this conference, right there with anybody. So I think you look, we played a national championship game in 1988. We should have went to one in 2007. We won 3 BCS bowl games during that era, which are today's version of playoff games. Mm-hmm. And we lost all that equity with Neil Brown. It's just what happened. Unfortunately, we went 6 years with a head coach. We changed athletic directors in the middle of that, and he got that new lease on life when Ren Baker came on, and then he had the 9-win season conveniently the next year. Well, unfortunately, Ren Baker had no choice but to extend you. You win 9 games, you get an extension, and it was fool's gold because of the schedule. And I will say this about Neil Brown. He had 2 Power 5 opponents on the schedule to start every year. That didn't help. Right. But overall, man, I think it's one of those things where we just lost that equity. Then we've been in the Big 12 for over a dozen years now, and we haven't scratched the surface of the Big 12 championship game. We've been close once.
Yeah, that part for sure. All that compounds to have people forget that West Virginia has a rich history, one of the richest in college football, and the ability to flip things around with a guy like Rich Rodriguez, a native son, in year number one. That's why I have a lot of faith. And we're going to talk contenders here in a second, Paul, but I want to know, is there a way at 9-3 or even 10-2, if they could find a way to that, that West Virginia looks up and says, hey, we're doing what TCU did in 2022 and not just contending, but actually winning the Big 12 title?
Yeah, I think it's possible, man. It's just a lot has to go right? You need to get Nico Marchiol to be a top probably 3 to 4 quarterback in the league. That's got to happen. I think Jaheim White probably has to have a Steve Slayton kind of year where you're looking at 1,500 to 1,800 yards on the ground, or you've got to have 3 guys, which I think we do. We've got a really talented running back room. We've got 3 guys that run 4.4 or better. Rich Rod loves that. Our offensive line, probably the biggest question mark on the offense, in my opinion. Defensively, though, I really love what we did. I think we've got 5 pass rushers that are really, really good. Obviously Jamori Robinson being the best of those. We don't know what's happened with him because of the eligibility situation. Outside of that, we've got a lot of defensive linemen that are back. We've got a linebacker room that I really like, and we've got 2 corners that graded in the high 80s Pro Football Focus that'll probably start, and a couple safeties that I really like as well. We can go through every player, but there's no need. I really just think that Zac Alley is a proven commodity on defense, especially. He's had top 50 defenses everywhere he's been. It's not really been a problem for him to do that. Even in year one at places like Oklahoma, or if you go back to Jacksonville State, he's always been extremely good on defense. And I think defense carries. And I think with West Virginia, if that's going to be the case, you're going to look at their defense and say that's the reason.
Coming up, who are the other contenders? If West Virginia is one of them, who else is up there in the Big 12? We'll get Paul's thoughts. Locked on Big 12, Locked on West Virginia crossover. Today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. I'm 24 years old. I don't know how to do the money thing. I look at my account, and most of the stuff that I have in there is gone. There is none of the money. And the reason being, thanks to Monarch Money, who's a great, they're not the ones who took it away, but thanks to Monarch Money, I know the reason being that I order a lot of takeout. And takeout adds up. And then next thing you know, I've ordered so much takeout that all of my money is gone. It is an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. Link all your accounts in minutes as well. And you don't have to have like 16 apps. Monarch Money gives you the chance to do it all in one. Don't let the financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. That's all at Monarch Money. Mountaineer Paul here for Big 12 and West Virginia crossover with the Locked On Podcast Network. Paul, who are the contenders? Who are the teams you actually think? You told me earlier Utah might just be fool's gold. Who are the teams that actually have a shot to win this league?
Well, in segment 2, I usually crack a do. And unfortunately for Utah, I do have a red code do. Fool's gold for Utah. But if I'm looking around the conference, man, I like K-State. I think Avery Johnson has a chance to be one of the best quarterbacks in all college football. I think he got one of the best running backs in all college football. He's got the best wide receiver room he's ever had since he's been at K-State. That's saying a lot. Rocco Becht, unfortunately, loses 2 guys to the NFL, so I think that's going to be an issue. Obviously, Baylor, I think, is a very, very trendy pick to win the league. Wow. I lost a lot of trust with Dave Aranda, unfortunately, after those couple years where they were just down in the valley. Where did they go? And then all of a sudden they popped back out last year after a really slow start. Basically, they were the antithesis of Pitt, right? Pitt started out 7-0 and then lost 6 straight. Baylor was a similar thing, but the opposite. So, they're a very trendy pick, and if they can keep that momentum, absolutely one of the teams. But if you're going to hold my feet to the fire, I think it's probably K-State for me. But, something in me always says, how many back-to-back years have you seen Mike Gundy be bad? I know it's not a trendy pick, but I look at Oklahoma State as a team I think can at least turn it around this year. I don't know if they'll get back into the title picture, but I think a lot of people, for whatever reason, I think they think Gundy can't get with the times. I think he's gotten with the times. So Oklahoma State's a sneaky team as well. They brought in as many transfers as we did, but I think they've got a shot. But, yeah, probably Kansas State.
What do you think about Texas Tech? The number 1 transfer portal class in the country. You think that translates?
I don't know, man. It's tough because we've usually it's a marriage of returning talent and incoming talent, similar to what Ohio State had last year, right? Where they had a bunch of talent on the team. They brought in 15 guys they really needed, and they win it all. You don't typically see a team like Texas Tech that loads up on a bunch of buys. You see teams get to the playoff that way. Like I think Tennessee's done that. Other teams have done that where they've just bought their way through. I think I just haven't seen Joey McGuire do it yet. That's the thing with them, right? I don't know if I trust Joey McGuire to do it yet. I do think they have the talent. There's no doubt they have the talent. But I just need to see Texas Tech perform at that level as a program. Rim Baker likes to say something, and then I think it's an excellent saying. Administrations win championships, right? Coaches win games. Administrations win championships. I don't know about the Texas Tech administration. I know Cody Campbell's a great booster, but what's their administration like? What's the day-to-day like there? Can you build a culture where you can win it all? Talent matters, but only to a point. You have to be able to push yourself over the edge, and I don't know if that administration with that coach that was coming out of high school so hot, such a great name, not really sure. So if it's not this year, it probably needs to be somebody else.
I do agree with the point that if it's not this year, there will likely be a change or the hot seat gets exponentially hot because they've invested so much money. The McGuire has to win. He has to be the guy that can win with the money that's been invested. If he proves
Monarch money.
Yeah, monarchmoney.com is where you can find the $55 million that Texas Tech has put into NIL on their football players who can now manage their money through Monarch.
$60 million is nuts.
It's a lot. It is a lot. And another school that's gone in on NIL is BYU. You spent a few days out in Provo a couple weeks ago. It's a special place, man. And I think they could still, even without Retzlaff, be in the conversation.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt, man, that they can be in the conversation. They've got a ton of talent returning. I love the Satakis, man. I really enjoyed my time around them. I got to meet Tom Sataki. I don't know if you got to meet him or not. The dad of Kalani Sataki. But, man, what an awesome conversation I had with him and their story about how they came over. From Tongan heritage and from Hawaii, and just having to sit outside the stadium, listening to games, wishing they could be inside the stadium, all the way to basically ruling within the stadium is just such a cool story. So if there's anybody that I'm rooting for now, that having spent some time down there in Provo with literally, and I don't say this like there's nothing to this statement at all outside the truth, the nicest people I've ever met. I don't know if it was put on or not because we were there, Drake, but I mean, if that's how they are day to day, those people deserve it. Like, they're really good people. They treated us well. And I got to be honest, man, they convinced me, like, while I was down there, going over their roster and looking at it a little bit deeper, they're deep. That defense is still there. They've still got a lot of pieces. One of the best defenses in school history last year. I do think that in the freshman class that they've got coming in, obviously it's not going to matter this year, but I do. And also their money they've spent. It's not Texas Tech, but it's in the ballpark, right? It's number 2 in the Big 12. So certainly, and I trust Sataki a lot more than I do McGuire.
Do you think a team that we haven't mentioned, Cincinnati, makes a coaching change after this season? There's no way they contend, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. You know, like I'm friendly with the guys over at Chatterbox Sports, and they definitely want to see him go. I think, you know, what was done there in the last regime is something that you look at and I think can probably be replicated in the Big 12, but you got to have the right guy. I don't think the guy they have now can do it. I just don't. I've never been a big fan of his when he was at Louisville either. You know, it's funny how Louisville won after he left. A lot of people say that they won with his guys, but it's like, I think it was an indictment in my opinion, because you left and then Louisville gets good with your guys. Similarly, I think somebody else could have probably won with Neil's guys at West Virginia had it just been a different guy at a different time. Can you imagine last year, not to pivot too much, but if Garrett Green's at wide receiver, who's absolutely tearing it up in the NFL right now as a slot receiver with Nico Marchiol at quarterback, don't you think somebody with a little bit of foresight, like Rich Rodriguez, who's done this several times, he's got a quarterback playing wide receiver right now that had 1,000 yards for Jack State last year, as that was a quarterback in high school. So, you know, Pat White was a safety in high school. Rich Rod knows how to move pieces around. Unfortunately, I don't think the guy at Louisville was able to do that. And you saw they moved some guys around. Louisville was successful. I don't think this is the guy for them at Cincinnati. He's what I consider a 500 guy, 6-6 guy, right? He's one of those guys that you're consistently going to be bowl eligible, and that's it. You might as well just get used to that bowl eligibility.
Yeah, I do not have a lot of faith in Scott Satterfield. I do believe that very soon Cincinnati will have to make a move, and Luke Fickell might get fired from Wisconsin. We will have Rich Rodriguez, Scott Frost, and Luke Fickell all in the Big 12, right back at the schools where they made their name and made themselves well known to the college football world, which I wouldn't complain about because Fickell went to the playoff there. It's not a terrible fit.
Do you think you can judge retreads the same as you used to be able to because of the era we're in?
It's too different, yeah.
It's too different, exactly.
It's way too different. And I think we're hearing a lot of positivity out of Rich Rod's camp and West Virginia that he's developed for times. Not a lot of UCF. We have not heard much all offseason out of Scott Frost and UCF. So we'll see. They could be two very different retreads. I'm hoping that West Virginia is not a retread as far as Big 12 membership goes. Hope we don't have to ever get to that point in our history. But would the Mountaineers leave? There was a lot of smoke around that a couple weeks ago. This is a Locked On Big 12, Locked On West Virginia crossover. Mountaineer Paul, Locked On West Virginia. 2 weeks ago, I don't know, there was a Twitter account that said West Virginia is 4th on the list for the SEC in expansion, and that if push comes to shove, that the offer could be there from Southeastern Conference to bring the Mountaineers in. And there have been the thoughts of, well, they're in the ACC, they'd have more regional rivals, and maybe the Big Ten wants to come along and get a brand like West Virginia. Do you think the Mountaineers would ever really leave the Big 12?
I mean, it would have to be for the SEC. It would have to be for the SEC. I don't know. For the Big 12 is never, the Big 10 is never going to happen for us. Obviously, the SEC makes sense regionally for us. You get Kentucky, obviously, you get a lot of teams. Tennessee is pretty close to home. You know, it makes sense, but you know, can we win in the league? Will we be a Vanderbilt? I don't know. Those are questions I don't have the answers for. Obviously, financially, you're going to gain a lot going into a conference like that. You're going to be able to compete at the cap every year. Outside of the cap, I'd have no clue where we would stand. Obviously, we've got one billionaire donor that I know of and Pat McAfee, but that's everybody in the SEC for the most part, right? Except minus Pat McAfee. Nobody has that on their side. But, you know, is Pat McAfee the kind of guy that's willing to day Portnoy for us and just buy us players, you know, go buy a Bryce Underwood? I don't think so. So I think a tenure in the SEC for West Virginia would be interesting. but I think the stability in the Big 12 and a seat at the table is pretty damn good. And I think West Virginia has shown over the course of a dozen years to be pretty happy in the Big 12 and not complain about being in the Big 12 and actually be thankful for being in the Big 12, unlike some that get extended this opportunity. And it is an opportunity to be amongst fan bases that are much like us, rabid fan bases like me and you, Drake, that record literally 7 days a week, sometimes multiple times a day because we love it so much, right? So there's not a lot of places outside the Big 12 that can say that. A lot of it is because we're shit on so much. We're looked down on so much. We're a truck stop conference, and we band together as a result of that. And in the SEC, the superiority, I don't think vibes with certain places and certain teams. And West Virginia is definitely not the kind of place to look down on other people, at least from we're better than you in football kind of standpoint. You know, we've always fought from behind. We've always been the Rocky against Thunderlips, right? So I don't know, man. I think it's great in theory. I don't think West Virginia, I think they would take it. Absolutely. I do think they would go. Is there actual smoke to it? I don't know. I think West Virginia's probably had conversations just like most people.
I talk a lot on my show when I talk about West Virginia about being from Arkansas and the underdog mentality and football being king there. And, UCLA fans will never get it. Never. There's no chance anybody at USC or even at Washington is going to get this and understand the amount of hardship that a state can have and how college football can bring you out of it or give you some sort of hope. It's a weird thing, but it's what the whole state rallies around. West Virginia has that. I don't see that in the Big Ten. I don't think it would be a fit. I don't think the Big Ten would want West Virginia. I could see why the SEC would want that level of pomp and circumstance and another state. The question maybe should be, is West Virginia happy in the current Big 12 with so few teams you can drive to and see your favorite Mountaineers play?
It's crushing to us financially. It is. We can't register a positive on anything because, unfortunately, and this goes and compounds across all sports, right? It's not just football. It's basketball. It's Olympic sports. It's rifle. It's everything. Although in some sports we're not in the Big 12, but generally across most sports we have to travel more than anybody else, or at least had, not anymore. Now, obviously, UCF, Cincinnati can talk a similar thing. It's just that it's compounded for us over the course of a dozen years, right? We just haven't been able to register these positive. We're always in the red. Even though we draw at about 125 or 130 million on in some years. So, it's just unfortunate because our travel cost is so high. It's difficult for us. That's why, you see Rembecker is doing some really, really cool things with revenue. Like we talked about the slogans in Rich Rod and how we're able to reinvest those slogans back into the university at Rich Rod's discretion. That can be NIL, that can be anything. So all people have to do is buy these shirts with his slogans. And at 50%, you can reinvest, right? You got to be creative to be at West Virginia. It's a tough job financially, but a rewarding job, and you get to be around some of the best people. But yeah, it's definitely a tough situation for us. But like I said, we're grateful for our place. Always grateful to be in the Big 12. No natural rival hurts, obviously. I think we've tried to develop that with some teams, but I think the lack of us being competitive has probably made that a thing as much as anything else.
Yeah, that's a piece where I think West Virginia is unique. They can lose for 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, and still be West Virginia. There are some brands that don't give that opportunity. I believe the Mountaineers do. I would be frustrated. Without having
been rough.
A Pitt. I'd be frustrated without, you mentioned Tennessee schools or Kentucky or anybody in the area. Do you think the Big 12's next move should be Louisville, Pitt, Virginia Tech, bringing in schools like that to give West Virginia a buddy, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, as far as fan bases go, it doesn't get much better than Virginia Tech. They are a rabid fan base there, and they're just in Virginia. They're just a state over. Absolutely. Louisville is a great fan base as well, especially in basketball. They've come a long ways in football. Obviously, Pitt brings the brawl. They don't have the reputation for having a terrific fan base, unfortunately. But man, they do have the ones that do love Pitt are very dedicated to that. I would love to see it. I think it would be just an amazing thing for West Virginia, obviously. And I think it would bring a lot of value to the conference, especially, especially if we get those two major rivalries. A lot of people don't realize that Syracuse and West Virginia has a long history, but we won't get into that because I'm sure that doesn't bring a lot of value to the conference outside of basketball.
No, I don't want Syracuse. Yeah, I don't think I want.
You don't want the Schwartzwalder Trophy in the conference?
I don't think so. I do think I want to see West Virginia stay in the Big 12 despite the hardships it's been for 12 years. And the next step is in the next few, adding some schools from the ACC to give the Mountaineers a breather, to give them a break, to give them something more regional. And I've said this on my show. We always talk about how bad expansion and realignment is. Maybe it can get to the point where it's so bad that it's good. In an event where the Big 12 does add a Washington State and Oregon State. The Big 12 does add a Pitt and a Louisville and Virginia Tech. And all of a sudden, you look around the conference and go, yeah, now West Virginia can play 4 or 5 games that actually matter to West Virginia. And yeah, Utah can play Washington State and Oregon State and BYU. And now, instead of 12 games and your 9 conference games are spread across the country, you have 9 conference games that are regional. And I like that part a lot.
I do too. I would love that, especially if it got into a place where it'd be maybe you're talking about some, maybe a little bit of regions or something like that going on where, we're playing in wings. And then I don't know how you would do a championship game or if you even do one in this day and age. Like there's a lot to hash out with that. But certainly there is a lot going on with the conference realignment stuff and the different variations of it. But I would love to have, at the end of the day, just give me Louisville, Pitt, Virginia Tech. Oh man, that would be great for West Virginia fans. We would be extremely happy with that. And I do think, like I said, it would bring a ton of value to the conference in so many ways. Rivalries literally drive this sport, and the powers that be just don't see that for whatever reason. I don't know why. I have no answer for it, but you'll see why when I just showed you guys earlier in our group text. There are tickets for the Brawl that are going for $1,800 right now in an unranked game. You can't even pay that for probably playoff tickets next year.
Yeah, it's incredible. Paul, where can more folks find your work?
Locked On West Virginia at Paul Mountaineer over on X, and that's about it right now, man. I appreciate you for having me on. If you want to see me on there, I chug a lot of dew. Most of the times it's in segment 2. Every now and again, we get into segment 3, we'll chug a Dr. P. Or every now and again, if I want a healthy show, we'll do a diet green tea.
I like it. This has been and always will be Locked On. Thanks for making our shows your first listen every single day. A crossover with West Virginia and Dose Grande.